Good Friday evening, folks. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandajis on our first Friday here in 2025. I'm happy to be joining you this evening to talk a little bit about some wintry weather potential over the next couple of days. We actually have two events to talk about. One that just happened this evening that many of you wrote in about, verifying that we saw some wet snowflakes and some graupel coming on through the area with a weak cold front that dropped on through. Not a whole lot of energy with it, but you see radar loop here over the last 4 hours. Some of you did see some rain. Some others did see some wet snow, and at times it did coat up the ground, which was pretty interesting enough there. So that's the first event we'll talk about. And then second is going to be a more impactful winter storm taking aim at the mid-Atlantic that'll arrive here Sunday night through the day on Monday. And here in Hampton Roads, we might have a very unique a play on the storm because we'll start as a wintry mix, talking about everything, snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain. Most of us will transition over to just plain old rain during the day on Monday, but then a shot of cold air coming in behind the exiting storm may change us back over to a period of wintry mix Monday evening. So we may have two runs added and two commutes may be impacted. So we have declared Sunday night and Monday as weather alert days for us here in Hampton Roads. Here's a loop again of radar imagery. Some of you did report seeing some what you were calling sleet or hail, which is actually called something completely different. It's called graupel, and it's kind of rare to see it here, but here's an understanding of how it actually forms, and this is unique to the occurrence that came on through this evening with a cold front. We had cold air aloft, a sliver of warm air in between, and then colder air at the surface filtering on in. So our graupel ball began as a snowflake, and then it encountered this shallow, warm layer. So that forced the snowflake to melt and contract a little bit. But then, as it encountered other snowflakes, it kind of melded more together, and then it fell to a sub-freezing surface like we had in some areas, especially to the north and west, and you see it fall into a bit of a pellet, which, I think looks a lot like what do they call it? Wow, I'm losing the name of it now. Paige, can you help me out with what these are called? It's a little, the ice cream treat. Why am I drawing? Dippin' Dots. It's a Friday. Dippin' Dots. I think they look like Dippin' Dots, just no flavor on those, just plain old snow. But that's what you saw out there, some graupel. Some of you did see some wet snowflakes, again, that did coat up the ground at times in some spots. All right, now let's focus on the bigger event. That'll be coming our way later this weekend into early next week. So here's a look at satellite and radar imagery. The storm system that'll be bringing impacts here is not even really discernible on satellite imagery yet. We've got a system moving into the Pacific Northwest, but a piece of energy from that will get thrown over the Rockies. It'll move to the east and then develop into our storm system on the other side of the Rockies as we get into the day tomorrow. So can't even see where it is now. So models haven't been able to pick up on the actual storm yet because it's not present yet. But it will be in the next 24 hours, and it's looking to be a dynamic winter storm. And what I mean by that is we're going to experience all sorts of different wintry weather. It's just not a plain old rain event. It's not just a wintry mix event. It's not just a snow event. It's just a combination of all of those, snow, sleet, and rain here in Hampton Roads. So preliminary timing estimates on this, I think we're going to start off with a wintry mix. Sunday, well after dark, probably between 8 and midnight, we'll see it developing from the southwest to the north and east. I'll show you it on radar, but there's going to be a little bit of a caveat to that because we're going to have a cold, dry air mass in place. And what that means when we've got moisture overrunning that cold, dry air mass, clouds are precipitating, right? But it's falling into a dry air mass, low dew points. So a lot of that's going to be eaten up. We're going to have to kind of soak the sponge before we see the atmosphere get saturated and that reach the ground. So it'll start as virga, and that's snow, sleet, rain, or whatever falling from the clouds evaporating before it reaches the ground because the air mass at the surface is so dry. So it'll take a little while for us to saturate, and then it'll make it to the ground, but that'll also help cool the air column too. So we'll likely see that enhance our wintry mix possibilities overnight. Monday morning's commute. Okay, this is a little bit different from normal Monday morning commutes because we're coming off of the holiday break for all the school districts. So you're going to have buses on the roads. You're going to have kids in high school driving to school, parents dropping their kids off. A lot more folks on the roadways this coming Monday morning. I do expect there to be some icy spots, especially on elevated surfaces, back decks, porches, sidewalks, bridges, overpasses. And even before the sun comes on up, if we get a heavier burst of wet snow or sleet or freezing rain, we could potentially even see some coated roadways out there before we see that transition over to rain. Speaking of the transition, so off to the south as warm air intrudes, building on in along a building warm front, we'll see our southern areas transition to rain earlier, and then that rain snow line will tick its way and retreat to the north through the rest of the morning hours. Most of us should be over to a plain old rain event by late morning on Monday, but again, the possibility is there that we could return back to a wintry mix before all is said and done. Here's a bigger image showing this Sunday night. That light wintry mix develops well after sunset. I told you that window being around 8 to midnight. Monday morning, icy spots are certainly possible, if not likely. Wintry mix will transition over to rain, and then a cold rain south with a wintry mix remaining north through Monday afternoon. Some of that rain, by the way, will be heavy at times. We could see rain totals over an inch in a lot of areas, which is good news in and of itself because we do have ongoing moderate drought conditions for the majority of Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina. And then Monday evening, as wraparound flow takes over, as our storm system hits the coast, deepens, and heads to the northeast, we'll get that northwest wind drawing down colder air. And sometimes, not every time, but sometimes we see that cold air rush in, catch up to lingering moisture and changing it back over to rain, from rain showers to some snow showers, maybe some sleet pelts too. So that could give us another instance of another wintry mix period late Monday. Let's walk through it now on maps, okay? I'm going to show you here our high-res model. This is called the graph. We're in now that window of time that we're closer to the event horizon that we can get high-res models, which is great. It's just another tool we have in the toolbox. We've been going off our longer-range models, the GFS and the European, for the past few days that kind of give us a broad sense of the trend and the patterns, and there's been some consistency developing, and now we're able to see what the short-range high-res is starting to do with it as well. So I'm going to start you off here as we get into Saturday morning at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. It'll be much colder, right? We had our cold front that brought the snow showers this evening move through. Winds have kicked up. We saw 40-mile-per-hour gusts already along the immediate passage of the front. It'll remain gusty overnight, so air temperatures by tomorrow morning, upper 20s. Factor in the winds, it'll feel like it's in the upper teens and low 20s. So out the door tomorrow morning early, bundle up, and really throughout the entire day tomorrow, it's going to remain very chilly. High temperature staying in the 30s. With the winds up all day, it'll feel like it's sub-freezing. Here we are at 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Lots of sunshine at least. It'll be a sunny, dry, beautiful day as long as you're bundled up. Not a problem to be outdoors. Now getting into Saturday night, early Sunday, we've got temperatures that'll get down into the mid-20s. So a hard freeze coming on in as we get into Sunday morning. And then by Sunday afternoon, start off sunny, by the way. By Sunday afternoon, we'll see temperatures climb into the upper 30s to around 40. So I've actually lowered forecast highs for Sunday a little bit into the upper 30s to near 40. So we'll be cold, but above freezing. Take note of that. By mid-afternoon, cloud deck begins to increase from southwest to northeast. Keep an eye on the temperatures, okay? As we get into 8, 9, 10 o'clock, we start to see the outer band, the overriding moisture build up and over the cold air mass stuck at the surface, okay? So we've got Roanoke Rapids 31, we're at 35 at Accomack, 33 Suffolk to Elizabeth City. Most areas at or above the freezing mark, okay? I talked about how the air mass in place Sunday afternoon will be dry. We'll have dew points down in the teens probably, low 20s. So air is rather dry. We need to saturate the column before what's falling from the clouds can make it down to the surface. And most of this precipitation at the onset will be on the lighter side. So it'll take a while for it to saturate the air column and make it to the ground. But nonetheless, radar will likely be active with some virga precipitation. May it be some snow or some sleet pellets or even light rain showers down to the south. Going on through the overnight. Here we are the first couple hours of Monday morning, 2 a.m. We've got Futurecast showing here widespread wintry weather, but notice it is not everywhere. Okay, it's going to be rather isolated to scattered in nature and not completely encompassing the entire area. But temperature-wise, almost every location by that point has dipped a little bit. Notice the wind direction, too. You see those little wind arrows? Those will be kind of coming in out of the north as our warm front will be stuck pretty much around the Albemarle Sound at that point. You can see south of there, temperatures, Manio up to 37. We've got some green showing up south of Hertford, meaning temperatures a little bit warmer there. But everywhere north of the warm front, we'll be seeing sleet, freezing rain, and just some plain old snow. And that includes south side up to the peninsulas and eastern shore. So this will be the period of time. By that point, we'll be saturated, so this will be reaching the ground, and we could see some minor accumulations here on road surfaces, on grassy areas in the overnight hours pre-dawn Monday morning. So we see a little break to the south by sunup Monday, 7 a.m. Everybody's heading out the door to school and work. We've got widespread areas to the north of 64 that's seeing some snow. Sleet along and south, especially in interior sections of south side, with temperatures, again, still hovering near that freezing mark. Gloucester at 30, Accomack sitting in the upper 20s, right at freezing at Suffolk over to Murfreesboro. So this could be a period, too, as you get closer to the I-95 corridor, that you get some icing beginning to set on up, some freezing rain. 58 out to I-95 to pick it up. Maybe an icy roadway out there or two if you're heading out there early Monday morning. Keep that in mind. Now, as we go on into late morning, 11 a.m. now, okay, notice the rain-snow line by this point has finally lifted north. So we've got a very pronounced rain-snow line right through, say, Cape Charles, up through Williamsburg, James City County, southern tip of Matthews and Gloucester. North of there, snowing to beat the band. We've got some heavy snow bands coming on through the eastern shore. Areas north of 64 headed towards Richmond, heavy snow. Narrow band of sleet and freezing rain likely along the actual front. And south of there, heavy rain. Okay, so any accumulations that we did see in the pre-dawn hours Monday, by this point, will be washed away and melted away. Even though air temperatures are still cool, it's going to be that cold, miserable type of rain that it might as well be a couple degrees colder or just snow, because it's not going to be a very nice day at all. 35 at Suffolk, 37 and heavy rain out at Norfolk by the time we get towards lunch hour on Monday. Here we are, 2 o'clock, still raining very heavily. The yellows and oranges indicating moderate to heavy precipitation. There could even be some sleet mixing on in. Even though air temperatures are above freezing, I still see some sleet, especially closer to that rain-snow line, mixing on in some of the heavier downpours. And still, notice up in Gloucester, Accomack, been snowing, according to this model, the entire time, which is where we're going to find some of the highest snowfall totals, which I'll show you in just a second. So the model I'm showing you here again is the high-res short range going off of the early afternoon run, the 18Z. The 0Z run, which is going to be the evening run, will come in just a couple of hours. So we'll see if this changes. But the trend, at least here, has been pretty consistent since we've been getting into that window time frame there over the last 24 hours. Here's a look at that model I just showed you and its output of snowfall potential. Again, one model run, that'll change. There's 4 runs of this a day. So this is just one of those runs, the most recent. And it does show south side, northeastern North Carolina, maybe getting a dusting trace, maybe upwards of close to an inch on grassy surfaces, maybe pre-dawn on some road surfaces, okay? But like I showed you up in the peninsulas, eastern shore, where it remains cold enough for longer, we could see some pretty significant snowfall totals there. From Richmond to West Point to Melfa, Chincoteague, Tappahannock could see close to half foot or over that if this model run verifies here. Now, all models aren't the same. So we have our long range and our short range. This is short range. Let's go back over to our longer range. We'll go on, touch on the Euro. Euro doesn't look all that much different from the short range model I just showed you, right? In fact, it's even snowier in places like Richmond, coming up over 9 inches according to this run, over a foot in Tappahannock, has the corridor of the heaviest snowfall setting up just north of Richmond. You see that purple color there, and that stretches into the northern portion of the eastern shore. Melfa over 9 inches according to this run of the European model. Now you may say, wow, 2 models in a row showing a good amount of snow off to the north. Even south side on the European run shows an inch, inch and a half. Interesting, right? Then we pull up the GFS, which is interesting here because go back 36 hours, GFS was much snowier, and the European was much farther to the north and wetter here locally. So they've kind of switched and flip-flopped. As the Euro has come south, GFS has drifted a little farther north and a little wetter, too, because you're seeing 1, 2, 3 inches at max in areas that the Euro was showing, painted with 6+ inches of rain. So we look at all of these different computer models, their outputs, their snowfall forecasts, and we'll draw up our own here, which is kind of a combination of all of them. And maybe erring on the more bullish side of seeing heavier totals Richmond and north, where I do have that painted. Richmond north of there up through 95, Fredericksburg up through northern Virginia. Could see some areas of 6 inches or more. I think that's a pretty good possibility, especially as you get north of Richmond. Richmond to Petersburg, over to Williamsburg, James City County, Gloucester, Matthews, up over to Melfa, Chincoteague area, 2 to 4 inches generally, probably. 2-3 inches there. Again, it's going to depend on how much sleet we see mixing on in there, because that's always the factor that'll mess up a snowfall forecast, is how much sleet gets pulled into the mix. When we get that marine layer, that warm tongue, that tends to blow snowfall forecasts here. But trace to an inch, I think, is a good bet through most of south side, the southern tip of the peninsula and eastern shore. It's not going to be a snowstorm that grinds our area to a halt, but it is the first time seeing some maybe accumulating snows in some areas in a long time. So here's a look at the snowfall forecast Sunday night through Monday. Again, this will change as more models come in. We still have all of tomorrow, all of Sunday for more model data to come on in. And as I showed you, you can't even see the storm yet on satellite imagery. It's just not, it's in the process, the early formation stages of development right now. So let's walk through the longest snow droughts. Yeah, we're in one right now. Second longest today is day 1070 since we've had measurable snow. We got to go back to, I think, January 29th, 2022. Was the last time we had measurable snow, and that was at Norfolk at 4 inches. So it's been a while. If we go through January and all of February without snow, we'd get that #1 spot. Only 56 days separate our current streak and the longest, which was back in 1993. All right, we talked about snowfall, but this is a wintry mix scenario, right? So what else are we going to see? Well, the potential is there for some freezing rain. And of course, that is the worst type of winter precipitation because you can't even enjoy it. Brings down tree limbs, brings down power lines, causes a mess on roadways. Thankfully, this doesn't look to be a dominant icing event, but certainly even a little bit can do some damage. So models here, the short range graph that I showed you is painting about 1/10 of an inch of ice accretion, possibly, as you get closer to I-95, and certainly west of there, higher icing scenarios possible as you get that cold air kind of banked in against the mountains. The Blue Ridge, you start to see a better icing setup with that warm air aloft, just dropping the rain into the cold air down by the surface there. So that's a possibility. In terms of rainfall, area-wide, probably a 1/2 inch to an inch, maybe a few spots, 1.5 inches. You saw how heavy that rain will start coming down late morning on Monday through early afternoon. So it's going to be a pretty good soaking, good drink of water. We need it. Drought conditions are there if they're present across most of the areas, moderate drought conditions. All right, for the rest of your evening, if you're tuning in, I don't know if you're heading out, it's almost 9 o'clock. Temperature-wise, we have begun to drop. We topped out today in the upper 40s, which compared to yesterday, a little milder, a couple degrees milder. I had a southwest wind ahead of that cold front, so that did help boost things a bit. But now winds are out of the northwest and blustery, so notice temperatures by tomorrow morning down sub-freezing, likely most spots ending up in the upper 20s. A clear sky and that breeze will make it feel a whole lot colder, as you saw. So temperatures tonight, south side, looking at 23 at Chesapeake, 29 Virginia Beach over to Norfolk, 27 at Gloucester overnight, 28 Matthews, 29 Cape Charles, 28 at Hampton and northeast North Carolina. Mainly mid to upper 20s, interior spots, 30 along the coast. So even a cold night over to KDH and Manio, dropping sub-freezing there at 30 degrees. Now, check out the wind chill values, okay? Even by 11:30 tonight, look at what it will feel like out there. With the winds gusting 35 miles an hour or so, it'll feel like 19 at West Point, 18 over at Melfa, 21 at Chesapeake to Norfolk. Overnight, by early Saturday morning, here at 6:45, feels like 16. Out at Melfa, 20 at Chesapeake, 21 at Norfolk, and even through half of the day by lunchtime on Saturday, still have wind chill values at 20 at Melfa, 25 at Norfolk, and 26 at Franklin. You saw air temperature forecast tomorrow is 37, so it's going to feel at least 10 degrees colder than that with the wind chills. There's a weekend preview for you, 37 tomorrow, mostly sunny, breezy, and cold. The winds die down, I think, Saturday night, but we won't have the mixing of the air. So that means temperatures will actually be even colder, down into the mid-20s to start things off. Sunny day on Sunday to start things off. By lunchtime, early afternoon, you start to see the clouds, especially southwest of the city, streaming into the northeast, and wintry mix after dark, well after dark. And that's when our weather alert day goes into effect. Let's talk a little bit about that 5-day forecast, 5 to 7 day forecast for you here. 40 degrees on Sunday, 48 on Monday, so temperatures will spike briefly. I think we've got a warm tongue that'll come on in mid to late morning, boost temperatures quickly into the mid to upper 40s. And then with the backside flow, the return flow as that storm system pulls away, we'll see temperatures dropping probably by sunset. And that brings about the possibility of seeing another round of some wintry weather as we get into the day, into the night, after the sun goes down on Monday. After that, that storm pulls away and we are cold for days, folks. It's going to set us up for a very chilly pattern. We've seen days in the 30s like once or twice, but never consecutively, so far at least. So we've got Tuesday through Friday now that are forecast to be in the mid to upper 30s for daytime highs. Tuesday will be a breezy day, so that 38 will feel like 30 degrees through much of the day as well. And I will share this with you. Looking ahead on the long range past our 7-day, models are indicating again the possibility of another wintry weather threat maybe next weekend. Long ways out, we'll see. But if you're a fan of Team Snow, fingers crossed. All right, that's the latest, folks. Thanks for joining me on the stream. We are going to have meteorologists Taylor and Hunter here all weekend long doing more streams to keep you updated. We have more model data to go through. And each time there's a new run released, they will hop on here and give you an update on any shifts, north or south, or any changes in our snowfall forecast as we go through Saturday and Sunday. If nothing changes, I will see you here on Monday as we track the storm. Have a great weekend.